Paralinguistic cues can be constantly interpreted even in the absence of the linguistic message. For example, paralinguistic meaning often comes through when the linguistic message is experimentally obscured by such means as acoustic filtering. When the linguistic message is in a language that the listener does not understand, and in some cases even when the listener is non-human. That is, stretches of speech can be produced in such a way as to convey, irrespective of the linguistic message, that the speaker is relaxed or impatient or aggressive or whatever. The relation between paralinguistic and linguistic feature is by and large unproblematic. The paralinguistic signals represent a parallel channel or channels of information and do not for the most part alter or obscure the identity of the linguistic elements. Someone may call my name angrily or hesitantly or with surprise, but it is still unambiguously my name. Nevertheless, there are few comments about the relation between the two types of intonation are in order. First, the parallel paralinguistic channels are often tightly coordinated in time with the linguistic channel. Much research has shown that nods, hand gesture, and eye contact coincident very precisely with events in the spoken message. For example, hand movements often coincident with stressed syllable, and gestures frequently accompany, say, the introduction of a new entity into the discourse. Second, the paralinguistic message obviously affects the interpretation of the utterance as a whole. Pike's formulation from the 1940s can scarcely be improved on. The hearer is frequently more interested in the speaker's attitude than in his words. That is, whether a sentence is spoken with a smile or with a sneer. If one says something insulting but smiles in face and voice, the utterance may be a great compliment. But if one says something very complimentary but with an intonation of contempt, the result is an insult. A highly forceful or exciting statement in a very matter-of-fact intonation may, by its lack of balance, produce one type of irony. In interpreting oh in interpreting an utterance, in other words, we take into account all the communicative channels, not just the linguistic one. But that fact does not mean that the identity of the channel is confounded. On the contrary, Pike's reference to mismatches between the linguistic message and attitude with which it is conveyed suggests that the two remain clearly distinct. Finally, and most importantly, we need to mention the nature of the phonetic interaction between linguistic and vocal paralinguistic cues. While I have just argued that the identity of the linguistic and paralinguistic is not normally confounded, it is certainly true that some paralinguistic messages are carried on the same acoustic signal as the linguistic message. How do the two interact? I believe that at a very low level of analysis, paralinguistic cues should be regarded as a modification of the way in which phonological categories are realized. In which such modifications do not normally affect the categorical natures of phonology. For example, it is known that smiling has an effect on vowel formants. Oh, really? And that this effect can be detected by listeners in recorded speech without seeing the speaker's face. The paralinguistic message modifies the acoustic realization of the vowel categories, but does not modify them so much as to distort their identity. Closer to the topic of this book, we may note that paralinguistic modifications of pitch range, such as raising the voice in anger, modify the realization of lexical tones in language like Yoruba or Chinese, but do not normally obscure their identity. This is true even in the languages in which the tone phonemes are distinctive levels such as high, mid, and low in Yoruba. In some ways that we do not entirely understand, the phonological essence of the level must be invariant relative to a phonetic frame of reference that can be modified for linguistic purposes.